Kirsten Cinema calls out the fact that they delayed the infrastructure vote until after they could get everybody on board for the reconciliation vote, and promptly gets followed into a bathroom by protesters over it. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. In other news, Newsom is ordering K-12 students to have the vaccine, but not the teachers. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. Another women's march has cropped up, the first one since Donald Trump was not in office anymore. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on there and some of the things that happened with that and some of the reactions to that as well. And a shooting in Houston goes almost unnoticed for almost the entire weekend. We'll talk just a bit about what happened with it and possibly why it is pushed right out of the news. It's going to be all this and more. Hey, do you trust the plan yet? I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and as usual, coming in on a Monday, we have got a ton of stuff to get to today. And on top of it, Well, I will apologize in advance if I get to be just a little bit low energy today because, I had that weird thing again where it came out to be 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still laying in my bed, which I went to bed at a decent hour later than normal, but I went to bed at midnight. But 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning rolled around, and I'm still out there, eyes on the ceiling, thinking to myself, why the fuck am I still awake? So, yeah. But I hope we won't be too low energy today. This is going to be like one of the few days where you actually see the can that I'm drinking out of here because, well, I needed a little bit of a pick-me-up and a boost, and my big Quick Trip cup over here has got Mio and water in it still, and I didn't think that was going to be enough to carry me over the finish line throughout the day here. So bear with me. We are still going to get through all the news here. Hopefully I won't fall asleep on air. That would be hilarious, wouldn't it? But regardless, we got some stuff to get to today. We got to talk about some stuff, and we have got to get into it right away. But before we get started, make sure that you guys go over and check out the new and upcoming Turn Some Pages Productions.com. Go over there and check that out. Also, tsp-prod.com. You can go check that out as well. And go and check out great shows. We're going to be featuring great shows on the network, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The Porch Boys. So go and check all of them out. They're all great shows. They're all great friends to the network, to what we're doing here. And, I like the idea of, everyone gets the news from somebody who isn't sitting there in a suit that costs more than your house. And a lot of their suits do cost more than many of your houses. Not all of your houses, but many of your houses. A number of your houses, as one could say. So go and check that out, bookmark the page, and if you want to get in on the ground floor of what we're building here and possibly get a name of thanks onto the website itself, go over there and check out the GoFundMe, which I will put up in the chat for you guys right now once again, because it's really going to help us out here. We got another big donation over the weekend, another $50 coming in here to go help build this, which means that if somebody, your gracious host perhaps, throws another 30 in, we will be a quarter of a way to our goal, and plenty of money already to get started and get our wonderful people working as well. So that's going to be really great. I like to see that as well. I can at least get the money over there, and we can get a year of hosting done from our web providers as well. So that's really cool. The project is great. I think everybody's going to be great for that. And for the most part, this is going to go and pay our wonderful web developer, who is very talented, and I want to make sure that she gets paid as well. So go and check that out. TurnSomePagesProductions.com. The GoFundMe is in the chat if you guys want to throw a couple bucks to it. I mean, even a $5 helps out too. So if you guys want to do that, that'd be awesomely helpful. And if you don't want to be on the webpage, you can just leave it out anonymous. And I note who's anonymous, so I know who's not going to be featured up on the webpage here. So that's what we see coming out of that. Let's get into your finance for the morning here. Let's get some of the monitors up here as well so we can see who's watching where and see who's chatting with each other. Make sure that if you guys are lurking, you get at least one message in, because I write your names down throughout the week on our special notebook here, and I give you a nice bright thank you at the end of the week for coming in and chatting with us and keeping the show alive. Let's look at what's going on in finance for the day, starting with the Dow. The Dow is sitting at 34,326.46 points. They've had a relatively fantastic first of the month, compared to what we've been seeing throughout everything. 1.43% up. That is 482.54 points up in a day. Unfortunately, if the futures are any indicator, which they don't necessarily have to be, trading in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. We might see a correction coming back out from what we saw on Friday here. Looking at your Bitcoin is holding somewhat steady, or at least it was over last night. Yep, still holding steady, $47,772 and 10 US cents, which means that we've remained around the 47 to 48,000 mark throughout the weekend. So, well, your Bitcoin is holding, but I'm not big on Bitcoin itself, but it's another big indicator of where the economy is going, because once people start starving, once they start losing their ability to feed their families, your average traders, like the you and the me and the people out there, are not going to be holding on to the Bitcoin because they can't use it anywhere. Whereas they can turn it, sell it in for whatever worth the US dollar is at that point, get some of that back out of there and feed the family for maybe a meal, maybe 10 meals, maybe for a year. But we will see what happens with that, depending on how much of a Bitcoin they have. Your scrap metal prices. Copper is on the upswing over the weekend. Steel is on the downswing. And aluminum appears to be on the upswing for its natural averages. The majority of your copper plays are up. Bare wire, copper tubing, flashing copper, number 2 copper tubing, insulated wire, thin wire, and Romex are down though. Your steels, or your brass is down too. Your steels are up. Steel BX, is down. Steel BX. Light iron is down, cast iron is up, rotors are down, shreddable steel is up, stainless steel is down, so your steel is a seesaw effect here. And it looks like, with the exception of sheet aluminum, all of your aluminum, radiators too, most of your aluminum plates are up. Rims are up to 67 cents a pound. That's incredible. That's over a week where they've gone up 7 cents per pound for rims. So hold on to your rims if you want to get rid of some of those, because, wow, those seem to continue to rise here. But that's where your metal prices are coming into here. Let's check in and see what IBD has to say about this. Starting with Ed Carson's article, Dow Jones Futures fall with market rally attempt underway. Tesla rises on deliveries. Dow Jones Futures fell Monday morning, along with S&P 500 Futures and NASDAQ Futures, as Treasury yields nudged higher again. The major indices and leading stocks suffered heavy losses last week, prompting a shift in the market direction to correction. Tesla reported booming third-quarter deliveries on Saturday. The EV maker delivered over 241,000 vehicles, far above Q2's record, and also beating views comfortably. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ plunged below their 50-day lines last week and undercut their September 20th lows. Growth stocks had their worst week with the coronavirus crash, while stocks rebounded on Friday in low volume. It marks day one of a market rally attempt. For now, the market remains in a downtrend. In such environments, investors should have a limited market exposure or be entirely in cash, looking for stocks with strong relative strength lines. Netflix, Datadog, Mosaic, American Express, Bill.com, Quanta Services, and Paychex have RS lines at or near highs, reflecting their outperformance versus the S&P 500 index. Netflix stock is now in a buy zone. In a healthy stock market rally, investors could buy Netflix or see early entries on Datadog, Mosaic, Paychex, and AXP stock. There's your chart for Netflix showing it is up 2.81 points, about 0.5%. Also keep an eye on Microsoft, Google. These tech mega caps RS lines aren't far from highs. If Microsoft and Google can reclaim their 50-day lines, it's a good sign for the NASDAQ. As for Tesla, it was holding in a buy zone before reporting Q3 deliveries. Shares rose modestly early Thursday. The RS line for Tesla isn't at a new high, but it is at its best levels in nearly 6 months. Tesla, Microsoft, Google are on the IBD leaderboard. Microsoft and Google are on the IBD long-term leaders. American Express and PWR stock are on Swing Trader. Google stock is on the IBD 50. Meanwhile, the fate of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill remains unclear. Progressives are demanding significant progress at a minimum, which means they move the goalposts. On a multi-trillion-dollar reconciliation tax and spend package before... I love how IBD is coming out and saying it's a tax and spend package. That's amazing, by the way. Before voting for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But Democrat leaders now appear to be trying to get centrist Democrats to agree to a $2 trillion reconciliation package versus the long-touted $3.5 trillion package. President Biden met with Democrat lawmakers on Friday, telling them the infrastructure bill won't pass until there's an agreement on the reconciliation bill. Pelosi on Saturday now said the infrastructure bill needs to pass well before October 31st, when existing transportation funding expires. Also, while Congress last week extended government funding into early December of next year, by the way, not this year, lawmakers still must approve a debt limit hike. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has pegged October 18th as the likely government default date. Raising the debt limit without Republican votes could complicate the reconciliation package, which in turn could keep the infrastructure bill in a holding pattern. Hong Kong trading was halted for Evergrande Group, and a property management unit, Hobson Development, reportedly plans to buy 51% stake in Evergrande Property Services Group for more than 40 billion Hong Kong dollars, or 5.1 billion US dollars. Evergrande Group is at a growing risk of default, missing multiple payments on dollar-denominated debt. The Hang Seng Index fell 2.2%. The U.S. Trade Rep, Catherine Tai, is expected to announce this morning that Biden admin will not back away from Trump-era's tariffs on China. Tai will say that Beijing has not lived up to the Phase 1 trade deal. She will engage China on living up to those commitments, but not pursue Phase 2 talks. So a lot of stuff happening here, a lot of stuff happening on the world that's going to weigh on the markets. I think we're going to have a rocky start to October, especially until we figure out what is going to happen with the debt ceiling. And honestly, I do believe that if Democrats raise the debt ceiling, it's going to make the markets boom. But if a Republican were to do so because he was in office, that it would sink some of the markets here as people start to look back and say, oh, well, we're going to go back and we're going to spend and spend and spend again. And the government's in trouble because they want to spend. But that's what we see off of that. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.45% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures retreated 0.5%, and Nasdaq futures lost nearly 0.75%. The 10-year Treasury yield, Scooby-Doo, Ruby-Roo. The 10-year Treasury yield rose 2 basis points to 1.49%. After retreating on Friday, crude oil prices were little changed, with OPEC Plus expected to continue slowly unwinding pandemic output cuts, despite concerns that will not be sufficient. U.S. natural gas futures climbed, and we will be talking about that later on too, as we read from the BBC later on in the show, because that's going to be another effective thing coming off of this. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. A lot of news, a lot of numbers, a lot of information here to come off and tell you that it looks like the futures are pointing downwards, and we will see what happens when the stock markets open. Let's read quickly from our friend Ron Helton's favorite publication from his favorite politician. We are reading, of course, from Bloomberg. U.S. futures fall, supply crunch buoys commodities, market wrap. From Srinivasan Sivabalan. U.S. equity futures declined and commodities rallied as concerns about a global supply crunch and persistently high inflation kept investors on the edge. Contracts on the S&P 500 fell 0.4%, versus the underlying gauge posted the biggest weekly loss since February. Iron ore to aluminum advanced while oil bounced back before an OPEC Plus meeting on production targets. Moderna tumbled in pre-market trading as traders dumped vaccine stocks following Merck & Company's announcements about an effective COVID-19 drug. Global markets have taken a risk-off turn as the post-pandemic recovery stalls on supply shortages in everything from semiconductors to coffee. A spreading energy crunch has added a concern elevated inflation would be longer lasting than policymakers predict. You think? Gee, and you want to go back and print $3.5 trillion more money. Or another $1 trillion coin, because that's the only way we can get the debt ceiling bypassed. Yeah, I would be afraid of inflation too. But I've been telling you this is going to be a long-term thing since, well, March, when we started seeing massive amounts of inflation. And all the spending that we did under the last year of Trump for more relief packages didn't fucking help anything either. Risks are multiplying at a time investors are bracing for Federal Reserve tapering as early as next month. The global chip and energy shortage is getting worse, the inflation is rising, the recovery may be slowing, and that puts central banks between a rock and a hard place. Ipek Ozkardeskaya, a senior analyst at Swissquote, wrote in a note, the best thing they could do is to do nothing, or tighten their monetary policy to avoid losing control of the economy. Yeah, good luck with that. No, I do understand that's the right thing to do. There's your petrodollars, by the way. I do understand that's the right thing to do, is to do nothing and tighten your spending policy, but good luck with that, because we need to take care of the people that might vote for us next time through. The globalists that they are. The globalists, show me the documents. I will eat your ass! Europe's energy crisis continued to worsen, with power and gas prices surging before the onset of winter. Yeah, same here, by the way, but not quite as bad. It's much worse in Europe. German power contract for November traded above 200 euros per megawatt hour, a record. Natural gas futures also extended a rally. Oil erased losses on Monday amid a debate whether OPEC Plus members will consider boosting output more than planned. West Texas Intermediate climbed above $76 a barrel before a scheduled meeting of the alliance. Treasury yields bear steepened, with the 10-year rate adding 3 basis points and the 2-year yield staying little changed. The dollar was steady after 2 days of losses. So, a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of stuff to see here. I do want to, before we get into the big news today, just touch on the oil thing, and I know we're going to be talking about it more once we get to this BBC article towards the end of the program. But really, that's something we do need to come back and watch right now. We have to see what's happening over in Europe and what could possibly be happening here. Now, we have had, at least in Wisconsin, a relatively lucky fall. Fall started, 2 weeks ago? Where it's officially fall, and as soon as fall started, the temperature jumped back up to 80 degrees, and we went back into major amounts of humidity, and I don't think we've seen a day yet that's been below 75 for a high. So we haven't had to worry about the heat too much. If anything, the air conditioning, although I've been stubborn, I've been holding on and saying, no matter how warm it gets out there, no matter how humid it gets inside the house, because I did water bath canning and I made some pickled red onions, which hopefully come out to be delicious, I'll know in 2 months. I am not turning the air conditioning on. Fuck that. It's October. The air conditioning does not go on in October. This is Wisconsin. This is not Florida. We're not, that's not a thing we're doing right now. We're not turning that on. So, but most of the rest of us have been fortunate in the fact that we haven't had to turn the heat on yet either, so that's what we see coming off that, and that's where that's going to go. But, I mean, if the prices keep going the way that they're going, we haven't had to worry about it yet, but oil prices, a lot of houses still heat on oil itself. Some of them still heat on coal, not very many of them, and many of them heat off of natural gas or liquefied propane. But regardless of any of those, all 3 of those are going up into a time where people have been off work for months and months still. Some of them are starting to go back to work, and you notice we don't hear much about that anymore, but many of them are starting to go back to work at this point, and yet, I don't know. We're going to see what happens with this heating thing and this energy thing, because I am predicting this is going to put a lot of people in the poorhouse over the winter. And they're going to want to go back and print a whole bunch of more money to pull them back out. But we will see what happens with that. We've got to get into some of the big news of the day. And we're going to start out with talking about the reconciliation bill and the debt ceiling. And we're going to start reading a tweet from Cassie Dillon, who I believe is still a contributing author over the Daily Wire. I haven't seen an article from her over there for a while, but I believe she's still a contributing author over there. Founder, low conservative, seen in Wall Street Journal, The Hill, DC Examiner, the Daily Wire, and the AM Mind. So, okay, so she's got quite the portfolio ahead of her here. But Cassie Dillon tweets out a quote tweet from Bernie Sanders saying, Bernie thinks 48 senators should be allowed to defeat 52 senators. Bernie Sanders tweets on October 1st. 2 senators cannot be allowed to defeat what 48 senators and 210 House members want. We must stand with the working families of our country. We must combat climate change, because that's a grip and that helps to keep me elected and helps keep me get these expensive, wonderful pudding cups. We must delay the passing of the infrastructure bill until we pass a strong reconciliation bill, because that's what I'm seeing here. And realistically, I can see where Bernie Sanders is coming off of this, because if he'd worded this differently, this actually might have made sense. But he's basically advocating at this point for minority rule, because 2 senators, 210 House Republicans out of, it's what, 52 senators and 217 House Republicans? I'm sorry, 52 senators and 217 House members that are against this right now because of where they stand off of this. But regardless, I mean, that's a gap out of Bernie, and he's going to continue to have them off of this. We must delay passing the infrastructure bill until we pass a strong reconciliation bill. Okay, Bernie. Okay, Grandpa. Time for you to step down. Reading from... I don't want to do this one first. Do I? Yeah, I do. We're going to start here talking from Fox News because Bill Maher is actually defending Kyrsten Sinema and Manchin. Bill Maher, well, he's a classical liberal. I mean, he's never going to fall into the progressive thing, I don't think, unless they pay him a buttload of money. But, with the deal he's getting off HBO and all the people that are going back and pretending they like Bill Maher on HBO, I don't see him going anywhere or changing his opinions for anything at this point. Maybe they have their thumb more on the pulse of the average Democrat. This is from Joseph A. Wolfson. Real-time host Bill Maher on Friday defended the maverick U.S. Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin for not backing the Democrats' multi-trillion-dollar spending spree. Maher, this is far from objective because, of course, it's Fox News and they have to pretend that they care about what Middle America thinks. Maher kicked off the show's panel discussion by tackling the in-party fighting among Democrat lawmakers over the $1.5 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill and the $3.5 trillion spending bill being championed by the progressive wing, noting how the far-left members of the party were very mad at Sinema and Manchin for not backing it. They're mad because they're not progressive enough, forgetting that they only got elected because they're not progressives, they're moderates, Maher said. Here's my question. Does spending more money make you a better person or a bigger moderate? Maher asked. And maybe these two, Sinema and Manchin, might have their thumb more on the pulse of the average Democrat in the country. During his opening monologue, Maher noted Congress averted a government shutdown by passing a continuing resolution, sparking cheers from the audience. They're cheering because we made it through till December 3rd. That's what they did, Maher reacted. That's the equivalent of putting duct tape on your shower nozzle until you actually call the plumber. That's actually not a bad comparison, actually. The HBO star blasted the stupid game of chicken between Democrats and Republicans, pointing out, at the last minute, Democrats had to back down. Nancy Pelosi blinked, which is of itself new, Maher quipped. Well, no, usually she doesn't blink. Usually she just plays around with her dentures with her teeth. And, I mean, good on Maher. I don't know. I think Maher is a fucking prick, but when he's right, he's right. And you can't argue against that when he's actually right. And there are a lot of people who don't want to come back and spend this amount of money. There are a lot of people in this region who look at this and say, what am I going to do? Because I'm already seeing the grocery prices go up. And, I mean, it's obvious to see that. 30 cents on various items is going to put a damper when you have a not 4 or 500, but like a 100-line receipt. When you got the big ribbon because you're feeding 4 kids, you're bringing them all home right there. And that is going to put a dent in what you're buying. No, it's not going to affect the coastal elites or anything like that, but when it's you and me down here in the middle of the country, or even the coastals that aren't elites, yeah, it's going to hurt a lot. Can't imagine what the prices are doing in Massachusetts. I'd like to go up there at least for one more trip before, well, we get right into this, and I'm so busy I can't do anything with my life anymore, but I'd like to go out there for one more trip, but it's like I go out there and you have to be masked and muzzled every fucking where you go. You have to walk in and, show your papers for your vaccine. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. And I want to see where the prices are at out there because the cost of living out there is massive compared to what we have over here. It is absolutely massive. But that's what we see coming off of that. So, I mean, balls and strikes, and good on Maher. When he says something good, he says something good. Let's grab one from CNN for you guys. Sinema says lack of infrastructure vote is inexcusable and erodes trust within the Democrat Party. From Daniela Diaz. Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema strongly rebuked the House of Representatives' lack of a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill in a statement on Saturday, calling the delay inexcusable and deeply disappointing for communities across the country. Sinema's statement came after a dramatic week in the House when Speaker Pelosi delayed the vote on the infrastructure bill because progressives threatened to withhold support until the details are ironed out for the separate, massive social benefits and climate spending bill. Wow, even CNN is calling it a massive benefits and spending bill. President Biden vowed on Friday that Democrats will deliver on their agenda as congressional leaders attempt to resolve intra-party divisions that have put the passage of the two bills in jeopardy. One of the problems, progressives say, is that Sinema of Arizona, along with her colleague, Senator Joe Manchin, a West Virginia Democrat, want lower a price tag for the bill, not the $3.5 trillion that was originally decided by Democrat leaders, but won't share the details on where they stand on these negotiations. Manchin made clear on Thursday that the $1.5 trillion was the price tag he was willing to settle for on his party's plan to expand the social safety net. Well, he might actually get onto this infrastructure bill or this budget reconciliation then, because now he's given them a number. Now he has blinked. In her Saturday statement, Sinema slammed the progressive Democrats in the House that are withholding their vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I have never and would never agree to any bargain that would hold one piece of legislation hostage to another. Well, you're the wrong line of work at that point, because that's like all pieces of legislation. That's why so much of this bullshit is so laden with pork. It's because it's one piece of legislation that's beholden to another. And they combine them into one and they say, either you vote for this or you hate the good things in this bill. She said, good faith negotiations, however, require trust. Over the course of this year, Democrat leaders have made conflicting promises that could not all be kept, and have at times pretended that differences of opinion within our party did not exist, even when those disagreements were repeatedly made clear directly and publicly. She added, canceling the infrastructure vote further erodes that trust. More importantly, it betrays the trust American people have placed in their elected leaders and denies our country crucial investment to expand economic opportunities. CNN previously reported that Sinema left Washington on Friday and is in Phoenix for a medical appointment, according to a statement from her office. Her office said she is continuing negotiations on the economic bill remotely. Progressive leaders, including Caucus Chair Pramila Jayapal of Washington, have repeatedly invoked Biden's desires in explaining their position on passing his agenda and making the case for a vote against a bill that he supports and wants to see passed. We must deliver for American families. Our Progressive Caucus members will put our votes on the line to send the entirety of the Build Back Better agenda to President Biden's desk. As he said when he laid out this plan, we can do this, we have to do this, we will do this, wrote Jayapal, California Rep. Katie Porter, the CPC deputy chair, and Omar, its whip, in a CNN op-ed published Monday morning. In a Dear Colleague letter released Saturday morning, Pelosi reinforced the decision by Democrat leaders this week to delay the vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill to work on the economic bill progressives want. Yeah, you're holding one piece of pork hostage for the other. You knew this was going to happen. You knew this was going to happen when they couldn't come out and just put out their $6 trillion infrastructure plan to begin with. Because remember, that was the cost of the first one that came out. The one that Biden proposed all the way back in February. Hey, man, $6.2 trillion, that's not that much, man. Come on, man, just vote for it, man. And we'll see what happens with that. Pelosi wrote in the letter, Congress needs to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill by October 31st before the extension for funding for surface transportation runs out. Good. Now we're going to put an artificial deadline on this. Now we're going to see what really happens when the federal government gets out of the way and if these projects continue or not. And I anticipate that they're going to, because they're going to come back out of the state coffers. But yeah, now we're going to see what happens with this. And yeah, no, this is something that should have been voted on months ago, because they put it over there months ago, literally months ago. They put that over to the House of Representatives. And now we sit here and we wait. And we twiddle our thumbs, and we talk about this all the time, because the next thing we've got to talk about is the $3.5 trillion tax and spend plan that is coming out of Democrat coffers. It's their massive wish list. It is their big ask. And there's no reason for it. Stop the spending. That's why you're waiting here begging for a suspension. Not a clear debt limit, but a suspension entirely of the national debt ceiling. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't care for this from Kyrsten Sinema. Let's read here from the Blaze video. Senator Sinema accosted by leftist activists at ASU who confronted her in the bathroom. From Paul Saka. Kyrsten Sinema was harassed by a small group of leftist activists at Arizona State University on Sunday. Video shows the Democratic senator from Arizona being accosted by left-wing activists at ASU, following Sinema into the bathroom to scold her on how she should vote for a controversial spending bill. Original video of the confrontation was uploaded onto social media by the official Twitter account of Lucha, Living United for a Change in Arizona, a self-described organization led by changemakers fighting for social, radical, and economic transformation, and committed to human dignity, inclusion, equity, and collective growth. Lucha claimed that an Arizona immigrant youth confronted Sinema at a classroom at ASU where the senator is a lecturer and where she received her doctorate. A male voice is heard on the video telling Sinema, "Right now is a real moment that our people need in order for us to be able to talk about what's really happening. We need a Build Back Better plan right now." Somebody needs to ask that dude why, by the way. The man is referring to the spending bill that Democrat leadership is attempting to push through Congress. Let's watch the video, shall we?
Okay, I'll be back.
So then we want to talk to you real quick. Can we talk to you real quick?
Hi, actually, I am heading out.
But right now is a real moment that our people need in order for us to be able to talk about what's really happening. We need a Build Back Better plan right now.
We knocked on doors. We need solutions.
The Build Back Better plan has the solutions that we need.
We knocked on doors for you to get you elected. And just how we got you elected, we can get you out of office if you don't support what you promised us.
We need 7 million citizenship for 7 million. We need the Build Back Better plan right now.
My name is Blanca. I was brought here to the United States when I was 3 years old. And in 2010, my grandparents both got deported because of SB 1070. And I'm here because I definitely believe that we need a pathway to citizenship. My grandfather passed away 2 weeks ago, and I was not able to go to Mexico.
You know what's sad? That sounds like my AOC impression.
Definitely believe that we need a pathway to citizenship. My grandfather passed away 2 weeks ago, and I was not able to go to Mexico and visit him because there is no pathway to citizenship. And if we have the opportunity to...
I was not able to go to Mexico, puppy, because there's no pathway to citizenship. Man, that sounds eerily like my AOC impression.
Pass it right now, then we need to do it because there's millions of undocumented people just like me who share the same story or even worse things that happen to them because of SB 1070 and because of anti-immigrant legislation. And this is the opportunity to pass it right now, and we need...
See, the problem with this, and they're bringing up good points. Now, first and foremost, the pathway to citizenship was blocked by the parliamentarian, which means they can't include it in the bill that this woman is screeching and crying about right here. They can't even put that in the bill. And I'm not entirely opposed to pathway to citizenship either, by the way. I think it should be somewhat difficult because they broke the law, but I'm not opposed to pathway to citizenship, unlike some of my friends over to the right. I am not opposed to this at all. Just make a process. And make sure that people attain it, otherwise, over the wall you go. But I'm not opposed to that idea for any stretch of the imagination, but that's not even in the bill. These kids don't know what they're talking about, and of course they have to do this, and they have to go corner somebody in a bathroom. In Arizona, by the way, which... Yes, I understand it's a school campus, so it's less likely there. But, I mean, if you corner somebody in Arizona, you're likely going to walk away with a few holes in you. I've been to Arizona. I've seen the way they walk around packing in that state. ASU, like I said, maybe just a little bit of a different story because of the fact that it's ASU, but, man, it's a college, so it's probably posted everywhere. No carry, no concealed, no nothing, but still. That is a very risky situation that these kids are putting themselves in.
We need to hold you accountable to what you told us, what you promised us that you were going to pass when we knocked on doors for you. It's not right.
I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of human trafficking, and it's because of the lack of worker protections that we don't have in the gig economy. I need you to stand by workers. Lots of people who are like me who became homeless and
So, I mean, there's that, and there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. And there's a lot of stuff in there that the parliamentarian is going to look through and say, no, you can't do this. This is not budget reconciliation. They are trying to push through the pork for that and make it budget reconciliation. But yeah, they're trying to hide a bunch of stuff in there into it as a must pass in order to say it's budget in order to get by the filibuster, which I said that they were going to do all the way back in the beginning when they started talking about $6.2 trillion. And I saw Ron in the comment section in the peanut gallery over there ask if anybody knows what's in this bill. Well, the people who wrote it collectively, all together, all know what's into this bill. But I don't know if anybody has read all 2,452 pages of this bill yet. 2,452 pages, I believe, was the final number. Let me check on that. Let's do some research, shall we? How many pages is the reconciliation bill? Oh, no, I underestimated. It's 2,465 pages, according to CBS News. So no, I don't think any one person has read through the entire thing, and even if they have, that's a lot of information to retain. For the most part, what we're going to do is we're going to see the same thing that we see coming up under the last emergency stopgap bill, the last relief bill that they tried to push through and failed because the American people found out what was in there. And that's, in spite of the fact that, yes, I understand that 4chan glows, it glows in the dark. And those anonymous people, a lot of them are probably feds, but they'll still go through that thing. The actual people who are actually 4chaners will go through that thing line by line, one by one, and tell you what's all in there, what countries they're funding, what everything else is going to, what military actions they're funding. They will go through that thing line by line, and they will post all of it. So the information will be out there, even if you don't go and get it directly yourself, which I do recommend. I do recommend if you see something in the bill that you don't like and 4chan posts it or leaks it, that you do go back and verify it against the bill itself. But they will put that all out there. All right, let's read from Market Watch. Let's get this over here. Archived, of course, because ad blocker. Market Watch, U.S. inflation rises sharply again in August and stays at a 30-year high. From Jeffrey Bartash. The cost of goods and services rose sharply again in August and left the rate of U.S. inflation at a 30-year high, with all signs pointing to price pressures snaking into next year. The Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index climbed 0.4% in August. The government said Friday it was the sixth straight big increase. The rate of inflation in the 12 months extended in August edged up 4.3% from 4.2%, the highest rate since 1991 when H.W. was president. There are some charts for you. Consumer Price Index is at up into the 5s. The core CPI is up into the high 4s. The PC, Personal Consumption Expenditures, are into the high to middle 4s. And the core personal consumption expenditures, minus food and energy, so basically your big screen TV, that's into the high 3s. And it noted that, year over year on the 10-year average, our inflation, even with the Great Recession and Barack Obama's mismanagement of the economy that he was handed in a piss-poor decision, regardless, but even with that, over 10 years, so going all the way back to 2011, right before we went into the second term Obama, our average was on the high 1s on all 4 indicators. So approximately a little bit less than 2% inflation. And now we're at 4s and 5s the whole way through. Am I a right-leaning talking head? Because I've said that. No, they have no intention on legalizing these people. It's a slave class. It's a slave class for their big business buddies who can go out and send these people in here and say, hey, these people will work for you for whatever price you want to pay them. And they can't say anything because otherwise we'll deport their asses. Until very recently, the Federal Reserve leaders insisted inflation would start to fall back towards pre-pandemic levels of 2% or less by the end of this year. Yet in the past week, senior central banker leaders acknowledged inflation could remain high well into 2022 because of ongoing shortages of crucial business supplies and even labor. The latter of those is actually the more important one, but nice try MarketWatch for trying to blame the former. The central bank wants inflation to average 2% a year in the long run, using the PCE gauge as its starting point, yet the Fed is prepared to let inflation run above its target for a while to make up for a period of very low inflation over the last decade. Why? Why do you want 2% inflation year over year? We should be striving for negative inflation is what we should be striving for. More production and less printing. More GDP, more output, and less money printer go brr. That's what we should be striving for. Why are we not striving for that? The highest rate of inflation in decades is squeezing families and businesses and acting as a bit of a drag on the economy. The big question is how long it lasts. Most of the increase in inflation is tied to the full reopening of the economy. A huge burst of pent-up demand overwhelmed the ability of businesses to keep up, especially with computer chips and other materials in short supply. Faced with higher costs, businesses have raised prices too, thus the surge in inflation. Well, yes, they have to go back and hire the people that they had working for them at 10% over, even more, 15%, 20% over what they were paying them before the pandemic, because the government was paying them more to stay at home. These shortages were expected to ease by now, but it looks like it could get even worse. Jerome Powell said the shortage could last until next summer. Most economists still think the Fed is right and that will slip back towards its 2% goal, but that it will take longer for that to happen. Supply chain problems have led to higher prices for many goods and some services, but some of those high prices are now starting to fall and others are increasing at a slower pace. So Chief Economist Gus Foucher of the PNC Financial Services, the danger of runaway inflation is fading. Other analysts think inflation could remain elevated for the next few years. I'm a strong believer that we're going to be looking at a closer to 2.5% inflation for an extended period of time, said Joel Neroff of Neroff Economic Advisors. By the Fed saying they're going to inflation average, I think they think the same thing. I think it's going to be higher than that. I don't see, and this is not official financial advice because I'm not an economic analyst. I'm a political analyst, if anything else. But based on what I'm seeing here, based on the fact that we're still seeing uptrend coming in unemployment, and we're still seeing stuff like that, plus the fact that there are people who are literally being kicked out of their jobs and being replaced and federalized, which means the federal government is meddling more into the economy. I don't think we're going to see high 4s for very much longer. But I think we are going to be seeing high 3s for the foreseeable future. Maybe even past 2022 into 2023 and beyond. I think we're going to start to see a lot of high 3s. I don't think we're going to see 2s for quite a while. Until we get a handle on some of this stuff and stop paying people to stay home. And start putting the pressure on them to get back into the workforce and actually produce GDP. It's a cruel way to put this, but that's what it takes to curb your inflation, because otherwise you're paying people all kinds of money, welfare benefits, expanded unemployment, the rest, the otherwise, and they've found out how good it is to go home and play Xbox all day. And not have to get into the car, go out. Now, and admirably, there are the people who are working from home too, which I think is cool. And I think that option needs to be on the table. that actually, if you get more, especially these data entry and office worker people, if you get more of them working from home regularly, that is going to be a little boon, and that actually might push us back into the high twos on inflation. Because we saw this with the pandemic, with the gas prices coming down, because so many people were locked in their homes for so long, plus the fact that OPEC went out and turned the spigot on full fucking blast, that you saw the gas prices drop, which meant the heating prices dropped somewhat in places that needed heating. Of course, that happened when it was warm out. But that's going to be a big one that's going to, that'll tie into what's happening with the economy. People have to go in and commute every day, spend all that money on fuel or the bus or anything else like that. Anything else that takes more money out of their pocket. Yeah, that's going to be less that they're going to go out and spend on the big screen TV. But it's just like with any kind of welfare system. Yes, you can come out and people say, "Oh, it's cool that I can make this much money by sitting at home, and if I game the system, I can do it just right. And I can stay at home. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to have the stress or anything." Whereas it's better to incentivize people. Hey, yeah, you can live this level of lifestyle if you're on welfare, but think of how much better it could be if you come out into the workforce. We're going to give you so much more money if you come and work for us than you would get from the state. Unfortunately, right now, with the state expanding unemployment benefits on taxpayer dollar and minting the big coins, money printer go burr, that's a very, very hard canyon to cross. But that's what we see coming out of that. All right, let's keep going here. Oh, this one I actually found kind of funny. Here's your inflation at work right now. It's not that the housing market is so hot. Here's your inflation at work. From Fox 12 out of Oregon. Excuse me. The housing market is so hot that a burned house is listed for $400,000 from Anna Bainey of CNN Business. The housing market has recently cooled from white hot to merely red hot, but that's still a great time to get top dollar on a home, even one that needs a little work, or one that is charred shell of a house. That's the case with a home outside of Boston that was literally on fire only a month ago. The burned out 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath in Melrose. Oh, it's in Melrose. Okay, now I understand. Was listed last week for $399,000 and is already under contract according to a listing on Zillow. House is in need of complete renovation or potential teardown and rebuild, the real estate listing from Morocco Group with Coldwell Banker Realty reads. Great potential to build a new and adorable home in desirable Melrose, a town where property values continue to rise. Yeah, that's a part of it. It's in Melrose, that's a big part of it. Which, in turn, it's in Massachusetts. That's the other big part of it. Agents at the Morocco Group were not immediately available for a comment on the listing. Indeed, the listing is priced well under the house was estimated to be worth earlier this summer before it caught on fire in June. The home was valued at $640,700 according to a home price estimate on Zillow, which is actually, for Melrose, a very, very low house listing in and of itself. That's a big money town to live in, and I mean, property value in Massachusetts is massive to begin with because there's no property. You can't come out and say, I'm going to take my ball and go somewhere else in Massachusetts and build because this is outrageous to live up over here because the parcels are gone. I mean, yes, you get out towards Ware and places like that and towards Springfield, you get a few more off of this, but I mean, what's your commute going into Boston? It's an hour on the best of traffic to go from Ware into, like, even where I went to school, South Boston area. Because I had a friend that drove in every day from Ware. Every single day he drove in from that town all the way out in west, and on the best of circumstances, outside of the daily commute times, that was an hour trip for him. I can't imagine what would happen if the pike was actually bogged down and you're trying to get into the city through the tunnels, through the Big Dig. You're looking at a 4 or 5 hour commute. Whereas you've got this in Melrose, which is, I mean, right up close. Where you could probably, I think in Melrose, you can still take the city transit. to get to work if you're going into Boston. So, but yeah. Well, I mean, and that's where I'm going with this too. I mean, for those of us who live out here in the middle of the country, $400,000 gets you a lot of house to begin with. Not a cute little 3-bedroom like this. $400,000 here in Redacted gets you a lot of house. That's like second or third home after you've had 8 kids. Lot of house. That is a ton of house. But in Massachusetts, I mean, $400,000, especially in Melrose, is like a hole in the wall. But it's still interesting to see. From WGNO ABC, we're going to shift gears to talk about the vaccine, the holy jab. Ochsner Health to add spousal COVID vaccine fee in employees' 2022 medical insurance plans. From Allison Brule. An Ochsner Health spokesman confirmed that the healthcare system will be adding a spousal COVID vaccine fee to their employees' medical insurance plans in 2022. The $100 per pay period fee will apply to unvaccinated. $100 per pay period? That better be fucking bi-weekly. Will apply to unvaccinated spouses, domestic partners who are included as dependents on the employee's Ochsner medical insurance plan. Each year, Ochsner Health evaluates health insurance and other benefits based on feedback from our employees and changes that impact benefits, services, and costs. Our competitive benefits plans are one of the many offerings that make Ochsner a top employer in the Gulf South. One change in the upcoming 2022 healthcare benefits offering is a cost adjustment for adult dependents, spouses, and domestic partners who are not vaccinated against the COVID-19. This fee is similar to what's been in place for tobacco users and is in line with the benefits offered by many. Wow, really? That's what you're paying extra for tobacco use? Holy shit. And is in line with benefits offered by many healthcare organizations and companies. This is not a mandate, as non-employed spouses and domestic partners can choose to select a health plan outside of Ochsner Health offerings. As with our employee vaccination policy, spouses and domestic partners with medical and religious objections will be able to file exemption requests. As a self-insured organization, we work hard every year to keep our health premiums low for employees and their families. The reality is the cost of treating COVID-19, particularly for patients requiring intensive inpatient care, is expensive, and we spent more than $9 million on COVID care for those who are covered on our health plans over the last year. We know that COVID-19 vaccination dramatically reduces transmission. No, it doesn't. Severity of symptoms. Jury's still out on that. Hospitalizations. Jury's still out on that. And death. Jury's still out on that one. Approximately 90% of those hospitalized with COVID in our facilities have been unvaccinated since vaccines were approved in December of 2020. I'm gonna maybe question bullshit on that too. Because we know that they're not against cooking the books. As in motorcycle crash, helmet guy, or without a helmet guy, who slammed his head into the back of a semi and mysteriously died of the COVID. And I mean, that's not just coming from there. Here's a copy of the actual statement off of this. Jason Bailey tweets out, breaking: Ochsner Health in LA is now mandating vaccine for spouses of employees. If your spouse is on your insurance and does not get the jab, they will be imposing a $100 per pay period fee. What was started as a $100 incentive to get the jab is now turned into a recurring tax. And that's exactly what it is. It's a tax. Good afternoon. You're receiving this email because you currently have a spouse or domestic partner as a dependent on your 2021 Ochsner Health Benefits Plan. To ensure you have additional time to plan ahead for your 2022 benefits options, we're sharing one of the latest changes directly with you ahead of the materials that will be sent to you electronically via Ocweb. And that's the full statement that came up out of them. That is ridiculous, and especially if that's weekly, that is fucking ridiculous. If it's monthly, I guess it's not that bad, because I do know some salaried employees get paid monthly, but if that is weekly, that is ridiculous. If I was on my company's insurance plan, it's only $52 a week, period, for my insurance. which I still think is ridiculously outrageous, but to add another $100 off on top of that, I mean, I'm not a wealthy person by any stretch of the imagination. Most of you guys probably make more per hour or per year than I do, statistically. But yeah, if my take home got dropped by another $100 a week, I don't know what the hell I would do. I have no idea what I would do. But that's what we're seeing coming out of that. Yeah. And I do like the fact that, yes, he said it's a recurring tax. You wouldn't do what we say, so you have a recurring tax coming off of this. In the other part of the country, let's listen to Governor Survives the Recall, honk honk, and see what he's got to say about the vaccine mandate.
And that's why we recognize our responsibility to do more, and that's what we are announcing here today. A statewide requirement for in-person instruction for all of our children to add to a well-established list that currently includes 10 vaccinations and well-established rules and regulations that have been advanced by the legislature for decades to add to that list the vaccination for COVID-19. We intend to do that once the FDA has fully approved the vaccine, which will give us time to work with districts, give us time to work with parents, and that's why we recognize our.
And what's weird about this is this requirement is for the students. This isn't necessarily for the teachers, which I find a little bit odd off of here. Let's read from the Sacramento Bee. Gavin Newsom orders COVID-19 vaccines for eligible students in California schools. From Hannah Wiley. Gavin Newsom announced on Friday that California students will have to get vaccinated against the pinko fucking pox in order to attend in-person classes once the U.S. Food and Drug Administration authorizes full approval of the shots for their age groups. The mandate, the first of its kind in the U.S., likely would take effect next year, according to the office. Newsom announced the requirement at San Francisco Middle School, where he characterized vaccines as essential in curtailing a pandemic that has altered daily life for Californians for 20 months. Yeah, you can blame the pandemic, but a lot of this is your own tyranny, Gavin Newsom. We're all exhausted by this pandemic, Newsom said. We're exhausted by the seasonality of it all. We're exhausted by the variants and mutations. The governor said the decision to wait until a full FDA approval came from discussions with school leaders throughout the state, gives them time to work with the governor's office on a plan to implement the rules. We hope this encourages folks to get vaccinated, Newsom said. We have no trepidation, no hesitancy in encouraging local districts to move forward with more expeditiously. We expect on the basis of other similar requirements that you'll start to see an uptick in people getting vaccinated well before those dates are established. The majority of California students have returned to in-person learning for the 2021-2022 academic year, as per state data, because the teachers union realized that if the parents figure out what they're trying to teach those kids in school, then there's going to be outcry and there's going to be problems in the school board. And the parents are going to start trying to take over the school boards instead of the people that are honked in by the state of California. But now everybody's got to go out and be vaccinated to get in. As kids who are not in a significant age range or a significant danger zone for this. All right, from Fox News, Sotomayor denies New York City teachers' plea to block vaccine mandate. From Andrew Mark Miller. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor refused to block a New York City requirement mandating that public school teachers and employees must be vaccinated against the coronavirus. Sotomayor, appointed to the court by Obama in 2009, denied a challenge from New York City teachers who were attempting to halt a mandate instructing them to be vaccinated by the end of the day. October 1st will be placed on unpaid leave until September of 2022. Sotomayor rejected the emergency request without providing explanation or directing the request to the full court for a review. Sotomayor's ruling follows a similar move from her colleague in the court, Amy Coney Barrett, who denied the emergency appeal from students at Indiana University in August and allowed the school to move forward with mandatory vaccinations. Bill de Blasio on Monday gave public education employees a Friday deadline to get partially vaccinated, following a legal victory that said such a mandate could move forward. In an interview with Spectrum News 1, the mayor said the school employees must have until 5 p.m. on October 1st to get at least the first vaccine dose. If you have not gotten the first dose, Friday, 5 p.m., we will assume that you're not coming to work on Monday, and you will not be paid starting Monday, and we will fill your role with a substitute or alternative employee, he said. De Blasio said the vaccine requirement goes into effect October 4th. Originally, and all teachers and school employees were supposed to be partially vaccinated by Monday. Vaccinations are our strongest tool in the fight against COVID-19. The ruling on the right side of the law and will protect our students and staff, the city's Department of Education said in a statement. You know, if all these teachers just stopped coming to work, and even the ones who are fully vaccinated, if they just didn't go to work, New York City would be kind of fucked. Because you would grind whatever production New York City has to a halt, because no parents would be able to go to work, or at least one parent wouldn't be able to go to work. The kids wouldn't be able to go to school. And I'm not talking like, you know, move this to distance learning, just don't go into work. I'm talking like actually walk off the job. Substitutes too. That's almost the, well, and I mean, you're not getting that much of an education. Hell, these kids will probably learn a lot more watching Contemporary every morning than going into their school, but as dumbed down as the schools are, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the show as well. I think it's the last one I have. Yes, it is. So we'll talk about the dumbing down of the schools on top of that, but yeah, if this is what they're going to do, and push people against their beliefs, then it's time for mass walkouts. It is. Fuck that. Alright. What else do we have here? Keith Olbermann. Doing Keith Olbermann things. New video. Time to stop coddling the morons who won't get vaccinated. At first, we stopped calling them anti-vax or makers of a personal choice. We start calling them what they really are. Snowflakes who are afraid of getting the vaccine! Let's listen to what this jerk-off has to say.
Time to stop coddling the people who won't get the shot.
Booster shot. Mission accomplished. And it is. It is time to stop coddling them, the ones who won't get the damn shot already. And our first step, you and I, is symbols, the language we use. We call these people vaccine hesitant, vaccine skeptics, anti-vax. We say they're protesting mandates and passports. They're making a personal choice. They're waiting for more information. They're making a medical decision. Bullshit! They're afraid. They're afraid to get vaccinated.
Somebody want to give Olbermann my address and see if he wants to come and say that to my face?
Stop feeding their egos about what they're doing. Stop legitimizing it. Vaccine hesitant, they're afraid. Vaccine skeptics, they're afraid. Anti-vax, they're afraid. They're protesting mandates and passports. They're afraid. They're making a personal choice. They're afraid. They're waiting for more information. Afraid. They're making a medical decision to be afraid. The snowflakes are afraid. Afraid of the vaccine. Afraid of being proved wrong. Afraid of doing what anybody else in the world tells them to do. Afraid of needles. So no more pleasant euphemisms about what's going on here. Apart from the people who have legitimate medical complications about vaccines, we have to stop coddling the morons who will not get the shot. We start by calling them what they are. They are all snowflakes and cowards and idiots and losers. And most importantly, they are afraid.
Don't you feel more educated? And I mean, think about what the This is the funniest part of this. You know who's afraid? I'm not going to get no vaccine that came out under Donald Trump. I'm not going to trust that or anything else like that because I know that this is going to be dangerous. And he was in there mixing up bleach with Regeneron in the back of a lab, and that's what they're injecting. That's who was afraid of this. You know who was afraid when they first started talking about this? Keith Olbermann. He's afraid. He's afraid. Donald Trump is going to put out a rush vaccine, and he is going to be the one who kills us all with this rush vaccine. He's afraid. He's afraid. Let's start calling him what he is, a snowflake that's afraid. But I mean, look at the timeline. October of last year. We're not going to take any vaccine that comes out under Donald Trump because he rushed it out for political points. January of last year. Hey, cool, there's a vaccine out, and our government overlords are telling us to go back and take it. March of last year. Hey, we're going to make this free. Don't even have to worry about costs. Just go out to your local place and go get it. There's nothing to be afraid of. Go and get it. Go do it. Hurry, hurry. Everybody go get your vaccine. Here's a nice, cool card that you can post on your social media. May of this year. Hey, we need to get more people in. Hey, we'll enter you in a drawing to get $1 million or a brand new truck or a gun if you go and get the vaccine. Just please go and get it. And now, you fucking losers are afraid if you don't get the vaccine. You're losers. What a timeline. All right, let's keep going here from the Dissociated Press. Justice Kavanaugh tests positive for the pinko fucking pox, has no symptoms. As numerous detractors of his believe that they hope that he dies over this because his name is Brett Kavanaugh and he likes beer. And somebody came out and said once that he tried to lay on top of her when he was drunk at a party and nobody in the world could corroborate it. Justice Kavanaugh tested positive for the pinko pox despite being vaccinated, the Supreme Court said on Friday. The court said the 54-year-old justice has no symptoms. It's the first time the court has reported that a sitting justice has tested positive for the virus, although Amy Coney Barrett had COVID-19 last year before she joined the High Court. Kavanaugh was the only one of the 9 justices to skip Friday's ceremonial swearing-in for Barrett, an event that itself was delayed by nearly a year because of the coronavirus pandemic. All of the justices were tested in advance of the ceremony. They also had been tested before they met in private on Monday to discuss adding additional cases to their docket. All were negative, then the court said. Kavanaugh will participate remotely from his home next week. During oral arguments, the court said, the new term begins Monday when most of the justices will return to the courtroom to hear arguments after an 18-month absence due to the pandemic. Oral arguments scheduled for October, November, and December will be in the courtroom, but those sessions will not be open to the public. Attorneys who argue before the court will have to have a negative COVID test in order to participate in person and wear a mask when not arguing. The public will continue to be able to listen live to live broadcasts of the arguments. The CDC recommends that people without symptoms self-isolate for 10 days after a positive test. Kavanaugh took his test and was informed of the results on Thursday, the court said. Kavanaugh's wife Ashley and daughters, all of whom are fully vaccinated, tested negative for the virus, the court said. Kavanaugh took part Wednesday in an annual 3-mile run for charity in Washington that included other judges, elected officials, government workers, and reporters. The court did not say how he might have come into contact with the virus. Oh, I'm sure that nice, cushy private school that his daughters go to had a case going around, but everybody's fully vaccinated, so they didn't test for it. Daughter brought it home. It's already run its course in daughter because it was a low symptom case because she's in her teens, I believe. And then he got it, but also got no symptoms because, well, Imagine having a virus that's so deadly you have to be tested and let you have it. But that didn't stop the leptoids from saying, hey, I hope you get put on a ventilator. I hope you die on that ventilator for what you did to Christine Blasey Ford. We know you did it even though nobody could corroborate it. The Atlantic. Let's talk about, let's listen to St. Fauci. St. Fauci, the patron saint of medicine, starting with the Atlantic. It's the assumption that it's okay to get infected and get a mild and moderate disease as long as you don't wind up in the hospital and die. I have to be honest, I reject that. Let's listen.
Feel as a physician and as a scientist and a public health person that I think it is not entirely correct to make this very strong gap and dichotomy between waning immunity that gets you waning for protection against hospitalization and death, and waning immunity against infection, mild to moderate disease. It is an assumption that is okay to get infected and to get mild and moderate disease as long as you don't wind up in the hospital and die. And I have to be open and honest. I reject that. I think we should be preventing people from getting sick from COVID, even if they don't wind up in the hospital. And somebody can say, well, wait a minute, you're talking from both sides. No, you can support something that's done given the current information. And I think given the current information about waning immunity for hospitalization and waning immunity and looking at the safety issues that we...
Sorry, I saw something in the chat that I wanted to put on the docket for tomorrow. 5185. Oh, not 65, 85. Thank you, KSL, for that. I'll look into that and see what that is. And see what's going on with that. We might talk about that tomorrow. So, making a note of that. Doing some production on chat here. Yeah, it is good to get the disease. They should be having disease parties, but they want their masses, their people so afraid of this thing, so enthralled, so scared that they have to go in and say, government, daddy government, please, please, please protect me, please. St. Anthony of Fauci, the patron saint of medicine. And he's not done yet. Listening from RNC Research as well. This is a little bit of a shorter clip, but he's already telling you what you can and can't do for Christmas.
But we can gather for Christmas, or it's just too soon to tell?
You know, Margaret, it's just too soon to tell. We've just got to concentrating on continuing to get those numbers down and not try to jump ahead by weeks or months and say what we're going to do at a particular time.
But we can gather for Christmas, or it's just too soon to tell?
Which, that's a heavily edited cut, and they just came out, basically, RNC Research to tell you that Anthony Fauci is going to tell you you can't go see Grandma at Christmas. There was more of this. Bobby Tyson, which I probably don't agree with him, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because you should be finding all the facts and drawing your own conclusions off of this. Like I always tell you to, the rest of the statement, we got to concentrate on getting those numbers down and try not to jump ahead weeks or months. And what we're going to do at a particular time and focus like a laser on getting those cases down. See, the problem that I have with this, and why the fuck is George Floyd trending, by the way? The problem that I have with this is the fact, I mean, once you let the government dictate what it is that you can do, they never stop. That's the problem. And they continue to go back and do their own big, lavish things, like the Obama birthday party. And they like to defend that, and there was a lot of the defense of that in the comments for this. There was a lot of defense for the Obama party in the comments for this particular video. well, they were outside. They were in a tent. They were all wearing masks, which the photos that got leaked were fact-check false on that, by the way. Everybody was fully vaccinated. Well, that doesn't seem to matter either. And there was an outbreak on Martha's Vineyard after the Obama birthday party. It got briefly covered in the news before it got hushed away again. So it really is. It's just you plebs can't go back. And most of your family gatherings, too, they're going to be smaller than what was going on in Martha's Vineyard that day. But, you know, because it's Obama and he's turning 60, he gets to have whatever the fuck he wants because I got it and I saved the economy. And it was me. It was all me. I saved it. I know it crashed under me, but I saved it, and I doubled job creation because in order to afford the insurance, people needed 2 part-time jobs out there. So I doubled job growth. Look at me. Look how well I do out here. And I'm turning 60, so I should be able to have my birthday party. You know? But no, there's no place for Fauci to tell you what it is you can and can't do in your own home, who you can or can't have in your own home. There's no place for this. And if the little people who bow at his feet want to be afraid forever, then that's on them. I bow to no man. I bow to God, the creator of the universe, and to no man. Let's keep going here. Let's talk about the women's match. Somebody vandalized the Floyd statue. What do you want to bet it was some fucking leftoid that wants to get this back up in the news so we can have the conversation again? Because that usually seems to be the case. Women's March holding first post-Trump event this weekend from Julia Manchester. The Women's March on Saturday will hold its first rally since former President Trump left office, signaling a new era for the organization that was one of the largest movements to oppose Trump. Saturday's march will take place in a number of cities. You can get that in a number of places. With the headlining march happening in Washington, D.C., and 650 sister marches simultaneously taking place in 610 cities. According to a memo sent out by the group on Thursday, 240,348 people have pledged to participate in the nationwide event. Okay, cool. And this is prior to the actual event happening. But the event also marks a new era for the march's organizers' push for liberal ideas in a post-Trump world. The strategy after the march was really where the magic happens, said former North Carolina Democratic State House candidate Amy Steele, who's been involved in past women's marches. The group was seen as one of the largest grassroots resistance forces, grassroots, not organized by Act Blue or anything, against the Trump administration, spearheading a number of demonstrations. You can get that in a number of different places. Against the Supreme Court, against the former president's immigration policies, and against the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's appointment to the court after sexual assault allegations, but no convictions because nobody would bring it up to trial. This year's march is taking place as abortion rights groups across the country are surrounding the alarm over the future of Roe v. Wade, the landmark Supreme Court decision that legalizes abortion amid backlash against the Texas law and ahead of the December Supreme Court hearing on a Mississippi law that bans the procedure after 15 weeks. The work continues and is in fact more urgent for more people, including women and other people who can get pregnant. Jeez, can't believe I just read that out loud. Than it's ever been, said a Women's March Executive Director Rachel O'Leary Carmona. There were a lot of people that asked us after Trump left office and said, well, what are you going to do now? And many of those were also the same people who said, oh, you're hysterical. Roe will never get overturned. It should get overturned. It's unconstitutional. And it should be at a state level. You should be doing this at your state houses. You shouldn't be doing this on a federal level. Not only that, it has nothing to do with abortion to begin with. It's a right to privacy. The rally is also the first women's march to take place amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, which has impacted women across the board. It comes just over a year ahead of the 2022 midterm elections and stands to have major influence on the candidates that will run up and down the ballot. The first Women's March, which took place a day after Trump's inauguration, was totally grassroots organized, was seen as a catalyst for the record number of liberal and Democratic women who ran for office in subsequent elections. Totally grassroots. Act Blue had nothing to do with it. Honk honk. But, yeah. I don't know if this video was from the Women's March either, by the way. I think it was. But Ezra tweets out, you know that girl that gets super White Claw wasted and she ends up in the bathroom saying all her thoughts out loud? Which she thinks are profound, but only the other girls in the bathroom floor understand. That's kind of what this reminds me of. Let's listen to the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch. It'd also help if I muted the proper screen here, because I just about muted myself over here, or unmuted myself over on the Twitch.
Better than nothing?
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't something better than nothing? And you know what we have to say? I stood up in front of the caucus and I said, you know, that might be an easy thing for some of you all to say. Because when a bill passes that is underfunded, that only gives a crumb, you get that crumb. Yep. Because when you only give some and not all, then some people get nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people get nothing. Yeah. Who gets nothing? We get nothing.
Yep, we get nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, standing up there in...
You make $174,000 a year. You are not getting nothing. Plus, you get all these expensive pantsuits given to you for free. Because the Justice Democrats need to make you look good. To go and make this rambling speech.
In that Capitol, and I was like, I don't know if y'all know yet by now, but I'm from the Bronx.
You're from Westchester.
When you tell me, isn't something better than nothing? What I hear, what you're actually telling me, isn't something for you better?
Yep.
Isn't something for you better? And why don't you accept nothing so that I can get something?
Yeah.
That's what is actually being said.
What? Can anybody translate that? I'll look over to the chat and see if anybody can translate what it is that she just said. Because that made 0 sense. Alright. Let's grab another one here. Let's grab one from NPR. Talking a bit about the Texas abortion ban and what this could mean for people in the future. This is from Sarah McCammon. And remember, NPR needs your donations because they need to spread communist ideals across the country and across the world. So make sure that you empty out your wallets because it's not your money, comrade. It's our money. And it's our money to go and spread the communist ideals. So we don't take our money away. We take money away from the other people, the big billionaires. You have to donate our money so we can go get their money. And spread those ideals everywhere. NPR. Never Printing Reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. Each month, Dr. Andrea Palmer delivers about 20 babies, easily the best part of her job, but some days she has to deliver difficult news. The conversations are they're gut-wrenching every time, she said. Palmer is an OB-GYN in Fort Worth. She recently had to tell a woman that her fetus had a condition called anencephaly, where essentially the baby doesn't have a brain. It's always fatal, often during pregnancy or else soon after birth, and patients are typically given the option to terminate. I've had some moms who chose to continue the pregnancy because this is the only time they're going to have with their baby, she said, which is just heartbreaking to me. Texas doctors like Palmer say SB 8, an unusual new state law banning most abortions, is complicating other types of medical decisions. They're hoping for more clarity soon as legal challenges continue, including a federal challenge from the Biden administration. Continuing a pregnancy after diagnosis, like anencephaly, comes with additional health risks and, for some patients, additional emotional trauma, Palmer said. I have other patients who just imagining the sorrow that each prenatal visit would bring, knowing that they're never going to result in a baby they could take home. It's just too much to bear, she said. Before SB 8, Palmer would have offered to end the pregnancy by inducing labor, but the new law, which the U.S. Supreme Court allowed to take effect on September 1st, prohibits abortions after cardiac activity is detectable, except for medical emergencies. Well, here's the thing. If the baby is not developing a brain, I would consider that to be an emergency, wouldn't you? Palmer said her patient, at more than 16 weeks, opted to go out of state for an abortion, something she said many of her patients could never afford. Some of the doctors say the law is also complicating medical decisions when women come in for help while experiencing miscarriage. For example, a patient comes in at 17 weeks with her water broken. That's a non-viable pregnancy. The biggest risk to the patient is that she could become infected, said Teresa Patton, an OB-GYN in Dallas. In such cases, Patton said she'd normally offer medication to expedite the miscarriage and reduce the risk of infection, which can trigger a severe condition called sepsis. But she and other doctors say it's not clear under the law what constitutes a medical emergency. And yes, of course, and it's NPR, so they can come out here and they can give you all these little anecdotes of, oh, well this baby might have got born without a brain, and the Texas law is going to consider it an abortion, and they're going to send their bounty hunters after it. Or, it's a miscarriage, they're going to call it an abortion, they're going to put these people up out of business. Because they're going to call it an abortion. That's cool. And we can sit down and dicker out the details over the anecdotes, and this is actually a part of the reason that I don't want the government involved in abortion, whether or not it's legalized or banned, codified into law or banned, because this does prove that the government sucks at everything. But that's also, and this is by an admission of statistic, not what the majority of abortions are about. They are about medical convenience. Oh, I did something stupid last night and I can't afford to have a baby right now. What am I going to do? Oh, I guess I'll just have to go out to the Planned Parenthood. That is still, to this day, no matter how many little anecdotes you put up here, the most common cause of an abortion is convenience. To this day. So yes, thank you for the anecdotes, NPR. The one in a million cases, but that's not what this is. And you know that's not what this is. From Fox Houston. So interestingly enough, this is a story that got almost no airplay after the initial, and it was all over Twitter while it was going on and shortly afterwards. But as soon as, well, we found out some details about it, it all disappeared again. Former student arrested, principal hospitalized following active shooting at Southwest Houston School. From Ahmed Sharma. Authorities are investigating what led up to a shooting on Friday afternoon at a school in Southwest Houston. Houston police say they received a call about an active shooting at around 11:45 a.m. at Yes Prep Southwest Secondary in the 4400 block of Anderson Road near the Sam Houston Tollway. According to a spokesperson with Yes Prep, Dexter Kelsey, 25, shot through the glass door in the front of the building. From there, he was able to get into the school and open fire. Police say Kelsey is a former student of the school and confessed to his role in the shooting. And there is your mugshot. And all of a sudden, this story disappears. Fortunately, no students were injured, but the principal, later identified as Eric Espinosa, was shot in the back and rushed to the hospital in serious condition. However, officials say Espinosa was released from the hospital on Friday. Authorities say the bullet remains in his back and didn't impact any vital organs. Numerous agencies were involved in responding to the scene, including the Harris County Sheriff's Office. However, HPD Chief Troy Finner arrived on the scene to get preliminary information about Kelsey, but could not identify him at the time. The 25-year-old former student is charged with aggravated assault against a public servant and deadly conduct. The motive, as of this writing, has not been disclosed. kind of curious about this myself. And we're going to actually skip the next one because that's just the fact that he got indicted here. But yeah, I mean, I understand why the story disappeared because, I mean, you can't have this in the narrative. If you have a school shooting that you want to talk about in the mainstream news and make a big deal out of it, it's got to be a depraved white or white-passing Hispanic child who used to torture little kids. Or not little kids. He used to torture little animals in his backyard because they were defenseless. That's got to be the narrative. When you see something like this, former student who's come in and basically gone in to shoot the principal, which I do have to question if there wasn't a little butt stuff while we were going on at school or something like that. That's the question we got to ask. But I mean, with the way the mainstream media is at this point, we know why this story lost traction almost immediately. Just want to read or listen briefly from the police chief, Troy Finner, talking about the situation here. Let's drop the music and let's have a listen to this.
I don't think any kid or anybody should witness this, but it's the world that we live in. The most important thing, a lot of times people don't seek the help. If any kids or any school administrator, anybody that's involved with this, seek some help through counseling. I recommend that, and I know the school and anything that the police department and all the other agencies can do to assist. We want to make sure the kids get counseling. I don't think any kid or anybody should witness this.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's horrifying, but, you know, this wasn't some kid that was on the ground who was wound tight that all these people know. This is somebody who was long since graduated, 25, which means he's been out for 7 years. And either something happened to him where he went to maybe he did go to his counselor and find out that, you know, the little butt stuff went on with him and the principal. A little bit of that. Or another teacher or something else like that, and his counselor informed him that this is the reason that he's having so much trouble in the other portions of his life. We don't know what happened here, but we know that this disappeared out of the news almost immediately. From CNN. Oh, of course they're going to carry water for China. They're CNN. Judge says DOJ should be even-handed in treatment of Capitol rioters. From Marshall Cohen. A federal judge said on Friday he believes the Justice Department hasn't been even-handed with President Trump supporters who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, suggesting they've been treating more harshly than the rioters of last year's racial unrest. Well, this guy's doomed. He's going to get protested in his federal court in just a little bit. The U.S. Attorney's Office would have more credibility if it was even-handed in its concern about the riots and mobs in the city. District Judge Trevor McFadden said at a sentencing hearing for one of the Capitol rioters, citing a year-old complaint from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, that the Justice Department was reluctant to charge rioters in the city after St. George's murder, hallowed be his name. McFadden, who was appointed by Trump, invoked last year's civil unrest while sentencing Daniel Doyle, a former employee of the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball team who pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for unlawfully protesting at the Capitol. You were acting like those looters and rioters who attacked our city last year, McFadden said, noting that some buildings were boarded up for months in Washington. You participated in a shameful event, a national embarrassment that, like last year's riots, made us feel less safe and less confident that our country could be governed by democratic values and not by mob rule. The judge's rebuke of the Justice Department may be welcomed by Republicans who have argued that the January 6 rioters were being treated unfairly. Persecutors have pushed back on those claims, and McFadden himself has already rejected one attempt by a January 6 defendant to argue that the charges should be dropped because they were politically motivated. I don't think they should be dropped entirely, but they should be rethought because, yes, I have read the complaint, and a person with a cell phone in each hand filming the entire thing is on record going through the court system for violently breaching the Capitol, attempting an insurrection, and attempting to obstruct a government process. a sentence which carries a maximum of 10 years. Whereas most of these people can walk away with a ticket for simple trespass and go on with their lives. But the left in this country doesn't like that. They want these people to be out here. They want these people arrested, put away for the rest of their lives. Who cares about due process? Alright, but that's what we see coming out of that. From CBS, this is a weird one. And I've got to say that I don't... I have no idea what to think about this. And it looks like the video just showed the trooper, who possibly could have been black, but I'm going to go over some of the reaction for this as well as soon as we get done with this. So, from CBS 2 of Chicago, Illinois State Police Trooper Gerald Mason dead after being found shot in his SUV on the Dan Ryan. An Illinois State Patrol trooper died after he was found with a gunshot wound inside his cruiser on the Dan Ryan on Friday afternoon. Mason, 36, was an 11-year veteran with the Illinois State Police. Red and yellow police tape stretched across the inbound lanes of the Dan Ryan after the trooper was found in his SUV near 43rd at around 1:45 p.m., which is eerie because I actually know where this is. A passerby saw the trooper inside his car. That's when she ran over to him and had to use the trooper's car radio to call for help. Witnesses told CBS 2's Asal Rizai they saw people frantically running over to the trooper's vehicle. Moments later, the police arrived, and witnesses saw officers place him in an unmarked police car and speed to the hospital. Sources said the trooper was taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center in critical condition. The Cook County Medical Officer's office confirmed the trooper later was pronounced dead. The trooper's mother, Linda Mason, said her son always wanted to be an officer. My son always wanted to be a state trooper ever since he was 2 years old. That was his dream. Eat, sleep, think about it all the time. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved my son. I can't believe he's gone. It is with profound heartache and unfathomable sadness that we inform you of the death of Trooper Gerald Mason. Trooper Mason was one of many fearless troopers assigned to the ISP District Chicago. We are asking the public to respectfully give consideration to the family of Trooper Mason and the whole ISP family while we continue to grieve and work through this tragedy, said Director Brendan Kelly. So I looked at this and I saw other news outlets. I don't know if it's in this one here. Circumstances of the shooting have not been confirmed, but there's no one being sought and no public safety concern. ISP would only say there's an ongoing death investigation. Which, I mean, even going into right now, there's still an ongoing death investigation off of this. But to pay attention to this, a lot of other news outlets pointed out the fact, and they tried to push this, like within an hour of this happening, of, oh, this appears to be self-inflicted. Just don't worry about this. Don't worry about what's going on here. And I did make a tweet out of a comment off of this, on a comment of the machine politics that happened in Chicago, and I said, you know, if a state trooper is found shot in his car on the side of the highway, randomly, in Chicago, and the media rushes to call it a suicide, you should be at least a little bit suspicious. Because none of us know what actually happened there. The state police, well, they actually might know what happened there, but for the most part, none of us know what happened there. All I'm saying is because in Chicago, you should be a little bit suspicious. And apparently, and I have to guess that some toothless cousin fucker from Alabama came out and said something racist about this, because my mentions were completely packed with BLM retards. People wanted to say that I'm only saying this because I think that the person that went off and shot him was black. No, it has nothing to do with race. It has more to do with how corrupt the politics are. And really, honestly, if I had to guess, I would say that Mr. Mason here saw something was going on, saw some of his friends were on the take, decided he didn't want to be on the take, and was decided that for his trouble. They didn't want to see him or talk to him anymore. Is what I would guess has happened. It nothing to do with race. Absolutely nothing, but that's the first thing they do, is try to make it all about race. Try to make it all about the color of the skin. And then on top of it now, it does look like this particular officer had a darker hue of skin himself. But that's what we see coming off of that. From the BBC. Fuel supply, military to deliver petrol to UK garages from Monday. From Alex Darian, which is, it's weird. They don't usually put an author on the BBC. Almost 200 servicemen and women, 100 of them drivers, will provide temporary support to each pressure on stations. Ministers have also announced that up to 300 overseas fuel tankers drivers will be able to work in the UK immediately until the end of March. There have been long queues at the petrol stations this week after a shortage of drivers disrupted fuel deliveries. Ministers, who have maintained there's enough fuel if people buy at their normal rates, say the situation at the petrol stations' forecourts is improving, with more fuel now being delivered than sold. But they acknowledge some parts of the country are worse affected than others. Brian Matterson, the chairman of the Petrol Retailers Association, which represents nearly 5,500 of the UK's 8,300 petrol stations, said Scotland, the north of England, and parts of the Midlands have seen a distinct improvement with fewer dry sites. But he told BBC's Radio 4 Today program that it remained a big problem in London and southeast England, where, if anything, it had to get worse. He said the military drivers will be a large help, but a prioritization of deliveries to filling stations, particularly the immediate independent ones, which are the neighborhood sites, was needed immediately. And yeah, we're going to sit and see some of this going on here. Shortages go on around, and yes, they still have people who are unwilling or unable to drive because they're afraid of the pinko pox, they're afraid to come out and leave their houses, or I'm willing to bet, and I don't know because I don't know British politics or laws, that they are also getting more to stay home on whatever Britain has for its welfare system than they are to go out and drive their big rig truck around the tiny streets of England. But that's what we see going off of that. A little bit of NASCAR news for you. I know that everybody who watches this show is a big NASCAR fan. Jewish Deplorable tweets out, NBC reporter attempts to desperate damage control as crowd chants, "Fuck Joe Biden." Let's listen.
Thank you to all of our partners. Oh my God, it's just such an unbelievable moment.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, let's go, Brandon. Brandon, you told me you were going to kind of hang back those first two stages and just watch and learn. What did you learn?
All right, judgment call. Judges in the live chat, let's crank this up all the way to make sure that you guys can hear it clearly. Does this sound like they're saying, "Let's go, Brandon"?
Thank you to all of our partners. Oh my God, it's just such an unbelievable moment.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, let's go, Brandon. Brandon, you told me you were going to kind of hang back those first two stages and just watch and learn. What did you learn that helped you there in those closing laps?
Oh my God, it was learning how each line didn't stay to one. Everything shifted top to bottom so much. Thank you to all of our partners. Oh my God.
Judges, what do you think? Are they saying, "Let's go, Brandon"? What do we think of that one? And I find it funny that this is going on, and NBC is allowing this to air, by the way, that this is going on. Even with the attempted the change to this off of this, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. got suspended for like 3 races for saying shit on live TV because they didn't put the buffer in place. Judges? Anybody? It's totally "Let's go, Brandon." Greta Thunberg is back in the news once again. From Reuters, Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg criticized world leaders for saying what she says is a lack of action on climate change.
Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. Right now, here in Milano, ministers from all over the world have gathered here to discuss the climate crisis. And they are pretending that they have solutions to the climate crisis and that they are taking sufficient action. But we see through their lies and we see through their blah, 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 and we are tired of it. They are discussing a climate emergency that is here and now, an existential crisis that is already taking lives and livelihoods for countless people all around the world, especially in the most affected areas. A climate crisis that will only get worse and worse by time, and the more we wait, the more irreversible damage we will cause.
Greta! Greta! So, this has been the biggest question that's bothered me the most off of this. Now, she is in Italy. I'll give that she's not in her native homeland. Why is she not speaking Swedish? No, I want to know this answer. Environmental activist with Asperger's, which I having a cousin with Asperger's, I believing that less and less as we grow up, because Scuba Steve is not that expressive. I can tell you that right off the bat. She is way more expressive than somebody who actually has Asperger's. The tiny size that I could see, because Scuba Steve, compared especially to his brother and sister, is tiny. But the Asperger's, what they claim is responsible for his lack of expression. And I mean, look at this girl. Does this look like somebody with lack of expressive abilities?
Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible.
But why is she not speaking Swedish or German, for that matter? Because that's another language that gets spoken predominantly in Sweden. Why is all this in English all the time? Why is that the first language that she speaks, no matter what? Whether it come back to be, we are sick of hearing the blah 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 from our world leaders, or how dare you, how dare you. Why is it constantly English? I have no idea. All right, but that's what's going on there. From Newsweek, U.S. official apologizes to Haitian migrants for treatment at the border, warns them not to come. Do not come. Do not come. From Lauren Giella over at Newsweek. A top U.S. official has apologized to Haitian migrants for how they were treated at the southern border. Juan Gonzalez, the U.S. National Security Council Senior Director for the Western Hemisphere, called the images of border agents on horseback corralling Haitians seeking asylum as an injustice. I want to say it was an injustice, that it was wrong, he said during a 2-day trip to meet local leaders in Haiti to discuss migration. Oh, don't worry. When you're in a political state like Haiti is right now, where the government is divided against itself, they don't really care for people who try to migrate away from the country. So those Haitians that are coming back, that are getting deported back, are actually probably looking at quite a bit worse. The proud people of Haiti and any migrant deserve to be treated with dignity. Gonzalez added that the large crowd of migrants at the border created a public health emergency and warned those thinking of making the trip to the U.S. to not risk their lives. The danger is too great, he said. Yeah, see, that's the thing, and these people never apologize for coming in and storming the border, staying on the Mexico side of Del Rio or anything else that they did, but we have to go back and apologize to them for Border Patrol using whatever tools they had at their disposal to go and enforce the immigration law that was supposed to be gone, according to Mayorkas and Biden. That's part of the reason they're protesting out there. But yeah, now they're going to come out and apologize to it. And today is Everything is Stupid news from CNN Politics. Trump wants court to force Twitter to reinstate his account. Dude, get on Gab already. Seriously, don't go back to them. They hate you. Don't go back to them. Why would you go back to them? From Caitlin Polance. Former President Trump has asked a federal judge to restore his Twitter account, according to a court document filed on Friday. Defendant exercises a degree of power and control over political discourse in this country that's immeasurably, historically unprecedented, and profoundly dangerous to an open democratic debate, Trump's attorney wrote about Twitter. Trump's lawsuit alleges Democrats in Congress and the Biden admin have pressured the social media company to keep Trump's account banned following his comments about the unfounded election fraud in an effort to combat COVID-19 misinformation. His attorneys also point out that though he was permanently suspended from Twitter on January 8th, before the end of his presidency, for encouraging violence on the Capitol selfie fest, Twitter has allowed the Taliban state in Afghanistan to maintain an account. Trump sued Twitter and its CEO Jack Dorsey in July. Trump's team has argued his speech is being unfairly censored. Trump's team months ago told the court it would seek an injunction against Twitter for the immediate reinstatement of his account, but lawyers had not made the filing until now that could prompt quicker action by the judge, Robert Scola Jr. of the federal court in Miami says. Twitter has not formally responded in court. Dude, don't go back. Because all you're going to have to do is walk on the tightrope and do whatever it is that they say, and they can come back and blast your ass to the fucking moon anytime once again. Don't go back. Dude, tell them that they can fuck themselves. And that you're going to another social media company, and watch all the journos and all the other people go flock to that other media company because they have to be the first one sitting up there saying, oh my god, 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 he's going to say something racist, he's going to say something racist, I'm going to be the first one to reply to something racist, he's going to say something racist, he's going to say something racist, he's going to say something racist, oh my god, 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 I'm going to comment, I'm going to report on it, I'm going to tell everybody how racist he is, oh my god, 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 oh my god. Alright, and the last one from the Daily Mail, then we will do one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, head out of here. And I almost didn't do this because this is more of a local story, there's no need to be national news, but this really does affect the incoming generation, how they interact with all the rest of us, and basically how the education system goes back on with us. And it really shows that the high school diploma has gone from something that's prestigious, and it was in the 70s for the most part. I mean, it wasn't a degree from Harvard, but you could lead a pretty good life with just a high school diploma, or even without one. My dad and his elder brother both never got one. One owns a business, the other one retired from a life of decent living, a decent work, factory work, but still decent work, skilled machine factory work. And he retired from that without a high school education. Back in the 70s, you could do that. Today, you really can't. Plus, that piece of paper has pretty much been something you can piss on at this point. Because it's that worthless. Because they'll do shit like this. So reading from the Daily Mail, Minnesota Middle School removes F from its grading system, saying it reinforces systemic racism and will allow students to retake failed tests. From Stephen M. Lepore for DailyMail.com. Students at a Minnesota school will no longer be seeing an F on test papers no matter how badly they do, and they could be allowed to retake tests. Sunrise Park Middle School in White Bear Lake released a YouTube video this week detailing its new grading system, which it says in part helps fight systemic racism. The scale goes from A, any score above 92.5%, to an I, 50%, to 59.4%, and below that, a letter grade will not be used, including an F. Associate Principal Norman Bell expanded, saying that students are encouraged to retake revised tests, quizzes, papers, projects, and have a 10-day window to do so after the date the grade was posted. Grades also will not be increased or decreased over behaviors, attitude, tardiness, and whether the assignment was turned in late or on time. There's other ways that we can communicate these kinds of things to parents, said Principal Christina Pierre, who emphasized that not every kid gets things right the first time. Yeah, but you should be encouraging them to do so. "49.49% to 0 are not used." So you go D straight to incomplete. Which I always wondered why they didn't have an E in there. You ever notice that? A, B, C, D, F. But yeah, I mean, this is them just dumbing down the education system even further to go churn out more people who will go out and vote and live and work in, well, what I'm predicting is going to be the communist salt mines at the end of all this. Who are just, they're not going to go, they're not going to excel, they're not going to try to get into the power systems. I mean, the kids, the elites, are the ones that are going to go in the power systems. And all this does is takes these high school students, dumbs them down even further, and brings them out so they can be human fodder for protests, for riots, for things like that. Or go and work in, like I said, the salt mine once we come over into a communist state, or go work in your local convenience store. Even do that badly because, like I said, they're not getting graded for their attitude or anything else either. So get your kids out of these schools. According to the website Niche, which connects people to their future schools, neighborhoods, and workplaces, White Bear Lake schools rank 99th in the state. Sunrise Park ranks 128th among nearly 400 Minnesota middle schools. In White Bear Lake, I'm actually not surprised. I'm not. But that's what they get here. And that's it for the news for the day. And the last thing that we do is we go and check out one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Where were we at? A wise man can hear profit in the wind was the last one that we did, the 22nd rule of acquisition. So now we are going to do the 23rd rule of acquisition. This is from an Enterprise episode, so this was before we got canonically it's after we got a lot of lore about the Ferengi, because Enterprise happened after Deep Space Nine, but canonically it's before we really got to know a lot about the Ferengi culture, because this is essentially the first encounter the Ferengi ever have with humanity, in spite of the fact that they're retconning that away from Next Generation, which was supposed to be the first contact. In the episode, a group of Ferengi raiders go find the Enterprise. They break aboard. They'd never seen humans before, but they go in there and try to get the equipment, the riches, to go back and sell and get off a profit. Ethan Phillips, who played Neelix in Voyager, did an outstanding job being a Ferengi in that episode, which I thought was cool. But let's look at what's going on here. Nothing is more important than your health except for money, which kind of gives an idea of the mindset of what they tried to go back to the sniveling, only chase for profit idea that they had for Next Generation for the Ferengi. But let's think about this for just a second. I mean, nothing is more important than your health except for money. Now, I would argue that even money is not more important than your health, but we're in a situation right now where you do need money to take care of your health, to take care of health care, whether it be get that vitamin supplement, whether it be go to the gym, whether it be get the right food, eat the right food, instead of just eating whatever crap you can get from the cheapest bin possible at the grocery store, or whatever candy you can get up off the shelf, or anything else like that. Money is important, but it's an important aspect of your health. So, I mean, if you do need to take a health day, you should every once in a while, and I should follow my own advice every once in a while myself, because, I mean, think about some of the health days that I could take at this point, but, you do have to keep that balance, because there are costs that are involved in this. Even if the government comes in and takes this all over and puts us all under a single payer system, there's still money involved in the health system. There's still money that goes along with that. And the government is going to very much hope, even under a communist system, that you are contributing to the society. Otherwise, you might wind yourself up in the gulag, where you're not going to be making any decisions about your health. In fact, the government will be making decisions against your health in many of those situations. So balance them out. Make sure that you can take care of your health. Make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation where you can't, but also make sure that you do focus on your health. And that's going to be it for the day. We're done. Guys, I'm going back to bed. Because I know that I saw the 3 o'clock hour, and then the alarm clock went off again at 5. I know I saw 3 o'clock on my phone. So I think we're going to go do that, but we got to change up the track first. Because that means it's time to get out of here. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat and came hang out. Wow, you can tell I'm tired. I can talk, you guys. But thanks everybody who came in, chatted in the live chat, kept me honest, kept me going, got some insights. I will read some of your insights after I come and get up off my nap here. But yeah, that was a good time. That was a great show. Make sure you guys are back here this afternoon at 5:30 Central Time as we welcome Britt from the Freckles and Britt Show onto the program to come in and talk about the Freckles and Britt Show, what she wants to do with that, and where we want to go with the Turn Some Pages Productions family, and of course the news of the week. And we'll have a lot of discussion about that. Definitely looking forward to that. And if you guys can, throw a couple bucks in towards the GoFundMe. That's really helpful every time you guys do that, because we do want to get this website launched and give you a better news situation. We want to have better news and things more tailored to you, the stuff that you know. So go and check that out. TurnSomePagesProductions.com. Go and check that out, tsp-prod.com. I'm going to head out of here because I can't make any sense out of anything I'm saying. I'm sounding like AOC at whatever that march was right now, where I'm just having a rambling thought, no idea what's going on, no idea what to say, no idea of anything else out of here. But we will see you tonight for the Red and Ed show, or tomorrow for more Contemporary. Until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.